God, the men you have sent to come on this earth to build houses and to go to war, they're out here thirst trapping with Colleen Hoover books on TikTok. Where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? Hi, I'm TT. My channel is TT Lovers Archives. If you like book related content, this channel will probably be your vibe. This video is about men thirst trapping with Colleen Hoover books on TikTok. I'm hoping this is just a little quick video because I've been seeing it happen for quite some time, not just with Colleen Hoover books, with books in general. I think Colleen Hoover is just such an interesting, there's just something there, something very textured and layered going on there. So I would love to delve into that. So with trends coming and going, it's no surprise that reading books has become something that a lot of people now consider as part of their normal lifestyle. Everybody reads, whether you read like a lot of books or whether you read very small books, everybody reads. So it's very hard for people to like gatekeep. I can't stand here and say, oh, you're just new people to reading. I can't, because I sound foolish. Like, what do you mean? What everybody reads? It just depends on your level of reading or like how much you read. Yes, while reading is something that everyone does, and it's, of course, it's not new. There's nothing new to reading. I think the aesthetic of reading is somewhat new, and I don't mean obviously not just this year. I mean, let's say in the past, let's say 10 years, past 10 to 20, at least the aesthetic of reading in social media is something that is rather new. I mean, we remember when we all read Wattpad. I was a Wattpad girl. Put my hands up, and we all know like the main character or YN, she'd be there, and she didn't engage in all these other vanity, feminine things. She didn't like makeup. She didn't like shopping. No, what she did, like she liked reading. She liked developing her mind and her brain and her thoughts. She wasn't like all these other dumb blonde girlies. No, she was very different. And I think that's just something that is just so interesting thinking back. Like the aesthetic, being seen to be reading is something in and of itself. Even like you, who knows what this person can be reading, but being seen to be reading in itself, it's just something so different. Like YN will be seen to be reading by Harry Styles or something, and all of a sudden she's just this smart, like interesting, intriguing babe. All of a sudden, just because she reads or she looks, he does not know what she's reading. No, he does not know what she's reading, anything at all, nothing of the sort. But because she's reading through the pages of something, she's now been given identifiers because of that. And I just thought that's something that's so interesting. So I watched this one video by a YouTuber called Amanda, and she basically talked about how reading has become cool again. I'll definitely put like the link to the video in my description. How reading has become really cool again. Because nowadays we see more influencers and more celebrities being seen to be reading. She talked about how there are actually like celebrity stylists that can style like bookshelves, like purely for books. Like, oh, they can say, hey, I want to look intellectual. What can you have for me? Or, oh, this is the color scheme I want. What can you do for me? That kind of thing. Another person that I watch is Jack Edwards, and he has this series on his channel where he reads the books that celebrities or influencers have been pictured with. So I think that was also very interesting. She didn't mention that in her video, but when I was watching that video, I remembered his videos of how he would like review books that celebrities or influencers have been pictured to be reading. And I will say TikTok definitely has like a huge part in this. I think TikTok accelerates like anything, any hobby, any niche, anything. I think it accelerates it, and definitely, which is not a bad thing, I will say. I think because of TikTok, people tend to like shuffle themselves into different categories. Like they're self-regulating themselves based on their For You page. And it's not new. It's not like any of this is new. You, as someone ascribing themselves based on identifiers, that is not new at all. I think it's becoming so like hyper niche and hyper accelerated, due in part because of TikTok. I don't know. Like I feel like that's just what's happening. Like I see it all the time. People call themselves Lana Del Rey, Coquette, Black Swan, girlies, just like being very hyper individualistic. And it happens all the time. It happens with fashion, happens with music, media, anything that people enjoy, people consume. And the thing about books is that that is a very accessible hobby. So I'm not surprised in any way that books have become bigger, reading has become more of a thing. I mean, even the book talk tag is very, very huge right now. I'm pretty sure I heard that Penguin Books partnered up with TikTok to make like a little tab in the filter where an influencer or someone or a book talker talking about a book can link the book inside the publisher. They can go and buy it. So book talk is huge. Book talk is so huge. Anyone can go to like the nearest bookstore, their bookshop. They can pick up a book. If you're real about it, you can probably download one legally very easily. I didn't say I'm about that life, oh, but it happens. It does happen. So it's a very very accessible hobby. So I'm really not surprised that it's something that is getting picked up by people on a larger scale. So this brings us to men thirst trapping with Colleen Hoover books on TikTok. And now look, this is not new. This is not new. This Colleen Hoover part is it's I mean relatively new, but men thirst trapping with books is something I've been seeing. I've been peeping small. I think it was just this Colleen Hoover part that really just made me like, wow, I need to get my thoughts out because it was really so jarring. When we're having this conversation, we need to talk about the bare minimum. Women on TikTok, especially women of color book talkers on TikTok, they will read the most diverse books. They will give you engaging content. They will consistently bring you innovative, creative ideas and recommendations and books and edits and all that stuff. And they will be paid dust. They will be paid dust. But a white man will come on that app, or a man in general, but white men especially. They will come on that app. Maybe they'll have a book on their lap. They'll angle their phone this way, a song in the background, and they've made millions. They will make millions. They will have a million views, have a million likes.
I waited for 3.5 years. White man did it in 1 week. I waited for 3.5 years. White man did it in 1 week.
It's so easy for them. It's genuinely so easy for them. They could just have it in the background though. Maybe they'll have a stack of books there like a prop. I'm not knocking anyone's reading. Maybe you truly read that book. It's very possible. It's just there. Just there, maybe to be on their lap. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to do it. And they'll it's just so funny to me. It's not funny, it's very sad, but at the same time, like, it's hilarious. Because if you truly dissect, if you truly sit back, it's like, what did this man do? What did this man do? The book is on his lap and that's it. He's chilling. I've come and given him a million likes just for that. Wow. Bare minimum. Interesting connection, because let's say if a woman reads books, it's something seen as, oh, you're intellectual, surprisingly so. You are not like other girls, surprisingly so. Like, you actually have substance as a woman if you read books. And which is very strange to me, because I don't know what it is, but I feel like, obviously reading isn't gendered, but I feel like growing up, I feel like the people around me, maybe that's just my environment, maybe other girls can attest to this or confirm or deny, but around my environment, it was more girls that read. So yeah, so I will say, like, when you're a woman reading, it's like, oh, wow, you read, like, wow, in that kind of sense, like, you have substance. Whoa, what's going on? What's all this? But then when a man reads, I feel like all of that stuff, being an intellectual, having substance, I feel like that's already assumed. It's already inherent. You do not have to prove yourself. You do not have to, do any of that. It's already inherent and it's already assumed of you to be an intellectual, to have blah, blah, blah. But when a man does read, while all those traits are assumed, I feel like there's another layer being added there. It's like, oh, he's emotionally in tune. Oh, he's written by women. If you don't know what that trend was, this crescent trend on that damn app, I was like, oh, men written by women. Be very afraid. Be very afraid. Men written by women. They're still men, no. They're still men. They're still men. This is why it's so, which is why it's so funny when we're having this Colleen Hoover conversation, because Colleen Hoover Colleen Hoover is a woman writing men. I see the men that she's writing. So better be so careful. They're still men. Anyway, Sha. So yeah, so I feel like, yes, while those traits of being like intellectual and having substance, it's already something that's very much assumed already for men. But when we see men reading, it's like another layer. It's like, wow, they're emotionally in tune. wow, they're soft. Wow, they're written by women, and it's not something that's new on TikTok. I remember there was this. I can't remember the Instagram account, but I know there's an Instagram account dedicated to men reading on trains, and it's like you'll see it, and the comments will be like, "Oh, they're so hot. Oh my gosh, they're automatically so fine." And I'm like, you don't know what they're reading. You don't even know what they're reading. They could be reading, oh, why women should be beneath us. They could be reading any kind of nonsense. They could be reading anything. You've already said they're hot. And they're reading just because they're reading books. You see what I mean by bare minimum? Like, we have to talk about bare minimum in a conversation about men with books and men thirst trapping, both in a general sense and both in a sense of social media and content creation.
I just need to show you guys how like unhinged it is. It is just when I search in men reading on TikTok, it is just compilations and compilations and compilations and like edits of men reading. It's mostly white men, but men in general, slightly attractive white men in general, which we'll get into later. And it's just edits of them and compilations of them. And I need you to get how for when you search men reading, it's more so it's men reading in the sense that they are focusing very much on the fact that it is men, attractive white men mostly, reading. Now if I search women reading, you will not get that. Do you see what I mean? Like, you are not going to get the glorification of women reading. You are not going to find compilations and edits of women just doing very candid things. Women on the trains, women in libraries, women shopping or whatever. You are not going to find them, and you're not going to find pictures of them reading. You're just not going to. You're just not going to, because the glorification is more so directed to men reading, despite the fact that, at least in my opinion, I don't know, I would love like a statistic, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure, at least in book talk, it's mostly women who are running book talk, in my opinion. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that women reading is not so outstanding and not so like, wow, hot and sexy and like, whoa. It's not so outstanding that we are going to find compilations of women reading and edits of women reading, just it being done candidly. Like, oh, a woman reading on the train, or a woman reading, like, just candid, someone else taking the picture of them. Pictures you will find of girls reading, one thing I've noticed that, okay, number one is that it's more so the book focused, and then they just happen to be there, in the sense that they are ornamental in the pictures, as opposed to when it's the men reading, it's the book that is ornamental. I think the focal point of those pictures, like, wow, a man and he's reading. So I think girls reading or women reading is not so outstanding that we are going to see them taking pictures of blah blah blah. Although I have my own thoughts of taking pictures and videos of strangers that you don't know. But anyway, that aside, you are not going to find that being done to women. You will find it being done to men. And because you will not find pictures of women being done candidly reading by strangers, the pictures you will find are pictures that the woman probably took of themselves. Like, these all look like, oh, she set up her phone somewhere in the shelf, or she has a friend taking a picture of her, or she has a tripod out and she's taking a picture of herself and it's probably going up on her Instagram. Like, these look like, oh, these are planned. So I don't know. So that's just my thoughts. Tell me what you think.
And the gag is, like, what's so funny to me is that it's women giving these men that are thirst trapping with Colleen Hoover books. It was probably mostly women giving them their hype, It's probably mostly women who are like, whoa, this is it. This is wow. Either saying, wow, yes, I want a man like this, or like ascribing him to a character in one of the books. That's why a lot of this just feels so like sinister when I think about it. There's just something so like strange and something so deep about all of this. I mean, for first, of course, like I said before, a woman will never get the same amount of hypes, especially a woman of color, a black woman. She will never get the same amount of hypes as some random white man just holding a book. holding a book, panning to a book in their lap kind of thing, they will never get that amount of hype. And the second thing is that guys who do this, they will not get the same amount of backlash like a woman does if they do talk about very enthusiastically about an author like Colleen Hoover. I will not get into Colleen Hoover books. I will not. I simply will not. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. But I shall not get into Colleen Hoover books. But that's what. But if you do know about the content of her books, if you do know what she peddles, what she engages in, then that's great. You will very much understand this video. If not, I'm so sorry. What I'm trying to say is that men who do thirst trap with Colleen Hoover books, who do promote Colleen Hoover books, they will never get the same amount of backlash that a woman does. By the way, the woman should be getting the response she gets. So, but I'm just saying that it should be consistent across the board. And that's not to say that they don't get backlash, because they do. And that's not to say that the women who do it don't get support, because they do. Like, you know, women do get support, but I also think that women also get a lot more backlash. The men that get backlash is very much along the lines of, oh, I doubt you read that book. It's more so as long as you did not read that book, please go and put your sister's books down, blah blah blah. It's very much criticizing the performance of reading, not necessarily the content of the book that they are promoting to their millions of eyes that probably saw that video. Does that make sense? It's very much narrowed into the performance of what they were doing, of the reading itself, not necessarily like the contents of that book, as opposed to what a woman would receive. She would get backlash based on that. Not saying she shouldn't, but there's a difference. There's very much a difference in response, if that makes sense. And I just think it's so, like, it's one thing for women to be very unhinged about Colleen Hoover. It's one thing for women to stand 10 toes down in defense of Colleen Hoover, because at the end of the day, you are punching at yourself. Now, there are levels to this. Let's not forget intersectionality. That's the amount of, like, the disrespect and abuse like a white woman receives is not going to be the same disrespect, abuse, and subsequent defense and justice given to like a black woman, you know, a woman of color, a black woman, a fat black woman, etc., etc. Let's not forget intersectionality, but let's just talk about in general. You're punching at yourself. If a woman stands 10 toes and calling Hoover, I'm not shifting, I like Coho, and that's it. It's one thing for her to rant and rave and promote. At the end of the day, for the most part, not for the most part, because when you do promote things like this, it does have its ripple effects. But for the most part, it is, the pendulum may just swing back to you, if that makes sense. Like, you are punching at yourself, you know, as opposed to a man promoting Colleen Hoover books. What do you mean? What do you mean? For the most part, you may never experience the abuse and the things written in those Colleen Hoover books that are directed to women, both in the books and in real life, if that makes sense. Not saying men don't get abused or men don't experience those things, but it does statistically occur more to women by men. And when it does happen to men, it does statistically occur more by other men. So it's just something that I was just thinking. I was like, wow, like, this is so crazy. Like, what do you mean you're thirst trapping Colleen Hoover? What do you mean? I just think there's something so inception-y going on, because it's like abuse by men followed by a bigger box of being wrapped up in pretty privilege or white supremacy, because obviously these are attractive men, attractive white men especially, written by a woman, and then it's being funneled down towards these books that have all those things I just said right here, like abuse by men, but these happen to be very pretty white, benefiting from white supremacy men, written by a woman. So that entire package is in a book, let's say right now, and that book is now being thirst trapped by another man who does benefit from white supremacy and does have male privilege and the patriarchy, and then that man is now being received and being consumed very well by women who are receiving that well and are liking it, and because don't get it twisted, we can all and be like wow, this is so performative, this is so like, you know, like, oh, this man should go put down his sister's book. We can all say that, but like, you girls, who's liking that stuff? Who? I've never seen that voluntarily on my own For You page. Never, ever, ever in my life. Never in my life. Never in my life. Never. It's always people who are stitching that kind of thing, talking about it. But I've never had that on my For You page. So there's an imposter among us. There's some various imposters among us, because how did you find that on your For You page? How did it happen? How did it occur? So I don't know. That's just something that I just wanted to like. My thoughts are a bit jumbled because I just saw it. I've seen quite a few videos of that. I remember one, he was like shirtless. Why you're shirtless in a park reading a Colleen Hoover book? There's just something so, you know what I mean? There's just something so strange happening, you know? So yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about basically. That's it. That's quite honestly it. I don't know. My thoughts are very jumbled. But yeah, that was it. That was that video. And yeah, that's it. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and yeah. Yeah, there's a whole lot more of other creators you could be supporting. Maybe I'll put them inside my either in the video or I'll put it in the description. There's a lot of really, really great book talkers that you could just follow because they're great and they give you really cool, awesome, fun content that you could consume. So yeah, that's it for this video. Like and subscribe.